Every woman has dreamed of her own wedding at least once. But there will be no guests or even parents at this wedding. The girl would never have thought that she would have just such a wedding. The groom is also rude and arrogant. The girl sadly thought that today she would marry a man worse than the devil. So let's go back to a few months before. In the evening, under shining lanterns in a carriage, a girl was sitting with a gentleman. They were on their way to a masquerade ball. The girl wanted to say something to the guy but did not dare for a long time. He told her to finally speak clearly and distinctly. Coming out of the carriage, she finally plucked up courage and asked him not to drink too much and not let his hands go like last time. The guy responded in a mannered manner that this wouldn't happen again. But these were just words that meant nothing to the girl. As soon as they got out of the carriage, the guy headed to the ball alone, waving to her. The girl was left standing alone. She called out to him, "Emile." She reminded him that they were engaged and at least today they could be together. To which he replied to her, "Chloe, relax. Our wedding has not yet taken place, so let me do what I want." "Yes, you're right," Chloe said, looking down. She thought that means not today, maybe another time. She began to watch the ball. Suddenly, among the crowd, Chloe saw her sister, Beatrice. She came over and they exchanged compliments about the masquerade masks. Emile greeted Beatrice with an enthusiastic expression. He complimented her on her appearance and kissed her hand. It has long been lurking in Chloe's mind that her fiancé Emile is crazy about her younger sister Beatrice. She just didn't say it out loud. How long have we been in this relationship? It all started after the death of my mother and my father's remarriage. The stepmother appeared. Isabella, her father's new wife, tried in every possible way to soften his grief. But Chloe was a stranger to her, an unnecessary child. She told little Chloe, "If it were up to me, I would kick you out of the house this very second." And her own daughter Beatrice was as cute as a doll. Wavy golden hair, irresistible blue eyes. Yes, it was only a matter of time before her father awakened his love for the charming little girl. Serious and homely, Chloe was completely different from her, both in appearance and character. Before she knew it, she found herself a stranger in her own home. The only way to escape from there and her only hope was marriage to Emile. But even here it's not so simple. As Chloe stood chatting with other ball guests, her father called out to her and asked if she had seen Beatrice. He was worried about her, because it was already late. Chloe replied that she would go and look for her outside the castle. She noticed that it was a full moon, so everything was clearly visible, and suddenly she noticed a couple at the fountain. At first she rejected this thought, but then she became convinced that it was them, Emile and Beatrice. She started running towards them and screamed for them to stop. But they did not hear her, and Emile kissed Beatrice. This shocked Chloe. Since her father was looking for Beatrice, Chloe led him to the fountain. He was angry with Emile. Chloe's father reminded the guy that his fiancée is Chloe. The guy replied to Count Brewer that he wanted to marry Beatrice instead of Chloe. He admitted that he loved Beatrice. The Count did not understand what was happening, and Emile continued to ask to break off his engagement with Chloe. But she knew about Emile's feelings for Beatrice. Chloe decided that she could no longer listen to this, and began to run to where she could be alone. She wanted to cry. She sat down on a bench in the park among the lanterns. The girl reassured herself that she had long known everything about Emile's feelings for her half-sister. Chloe tried not to cry. She raised her head up and saw that a handsome, tall man with blonde hair and wearing a carnival mask had approached her. "Who is this?" the girl thought, frightened. "And what does he want from me? He's probably up to something bad." That's all she thought. But he didn't want to offend her or do anything bad. The guy simply handed her his handkerchief, for her to wipe away her tears. She didn't expect this. She asked, "Is this for me?" Then Chloe told the stranger that she didn't cry at all, and besides, she has her own scarf. To which the stranger replied that if she did not need the scarf, then she could simply throw it away. And he put the handkerchief directly into her hands. The scarf was very beautiful, with initials. The guy left and Chloe called him and thanked him for the scarf. The girl asked the guy to give his name. She felt embarrassed that she appeared before him like this, but he didn't answer. In any case, no one had treated the girl so well for a long time. He gave her his personal handkerchief with his initials. It meant a lot to her. Chloe felt better. She decided to return. Her father noticed her and called her to them. The Count and his daughters went home from the masquerade ball. Already at home, my father was indignant, walked around the room and said, "How dare he?" Beatrice cried, and her mother calmed her down. Chloe stood silently. Beatrice turned to her sister in tears. "Sister, forgive me, I didn't want anything like that." Chloe didn't answer. She wouldn't be allowed to answer. The stepmother began to attack the father so that he would not leave everything as it was. She wanted Emil to marry Beatrice instead of Chloe. Chloe wanted to object, but no one listened to her. Beatrice burst into tears again. The stepmother demanded that the father marry her daughter to Emil. She said it was the only way, because if a rumor spreads that Beatrice is discredited, then no one will marry her. The father wanted to argue that in this case, Chloe would lose the opportunity to get married. But the stepmother was not interested. The stepmother replied that it was his own fault that he did not look after her daughter Beatrice well. She also accused Chloe of not keeping track of her groom. She again rushed to calm her own daughter, and she said to them, "Don't you feel sorry for Beatrice at all? And how can Chloe be with him when he kissed her sister?" To this, Chloe turned to her father. "Father, I'll be fine, save the engagement." She really wanted to move out of this house. The father replied that he was not going to harm her, but he needs time to think. Beatrice remained sitting in her room, and the stepmother kept accusing the father. Chloe sat in the hall looking at a scarf with initials. The father entered the hall to tell her his decision. He told his daughter, "I'm sorry, Chloe." 10 days later, Emil's father, Count Karain, arrived to officially terminate the engagement. The Count told Chloe that Emil was very sorry for his actions. However, he has feelings for Lady Beatrice and does not run away from responsibility. He asked Chloe to accept his son's determination as a quality in a man. Chloe was surprised by this speech. She thought if he loved Beatrice, why then did he not behave appropriately from the very beginning, but brought her to tears? And the father is there. Apparently he has no choice. Emil Karin's family has much more land and property, and Chloe's family is older and has a higher status. Both families are trying not to miss out on a profitable alliance. Chloe conceded, saying, "I understand. If Beatrice has no objections, then I will agree to the termination." While the fathers continued talking, Emil laughed at Chloe's answer. The girl thought how terrible it was that she was going to marry this man. Chloe asked Earl Karain one request. He allowed it. She asked the Count for forgiveness and punched Emil in the face. Emil shouted, "What is this? Is this blood?" There was blood coming from his nose. Chloe replied that if he did this to her sister, she would not forgive him for it. And she added, grabbing him by the shirt, "This is what it means to take responsibility. Don't forget about it." He was shocked by such audacity. Chloe apologized for her behavior to Earl Karain, but he replied that everything was fine and his son deserved it, and he asked for it. The girl thanked the Count for his understanding. After all, from childhood she was instilled with grace and calmness and other manners obligatory for a lady. During all this time she had to go through a lot, but she did not think that she was capable of this. It was a wonderful feeling after she punished the offender. Emil shouted, "What are you allowing yourself to do, Chloe? Did you raise your hand to me? I won't leave this so easily." For which he received it from his father. Chloe looked at him and could not believe that what she had so desperately clung to had suddenly completely lost its importance. What a fool, she thought to herself. But the girl decided for herself that it didn't matter what would happen to her next. It will still be better than marrying Emil. 1 month later, Chloe was sitting in the library reading a book. Her father came to her and said that the issue with her marriage had been resolved. The girl was surprised that it was so fast. She thanked her father, and he said that it was not he who organized this, but Isabel, his wife. She used all her connections to find a groom. Her father said she was sorry about the incident with Beatrice. Chloe was not surprised that her stepmother found her a groom. It was clear that she wanted to get her out of the house as quickly as possible. Chloe asked her father who would become her husband. He hesitated, and the girl asked, "Is this not a very good candidate or some old man?" She said, "Well, so be it, I'm still not looking for marital love." And the father replied, This man." He was never able to tell her about the groom. Then Isabel did it. He comes from a noble family, which is distinguished by its knowledge of military affairs, and has been defending the country of Cresialu since its founding. Their family itself is harsh and warlike. The current head took office several years ago. He sits in his border estate and practically never appears in public. He is called arrogant, disrespectful, and even devilish. Isabel asked Beatrice if she had heard of such a thing, and she called his name, Friedrich Berzink. Chloe asked in shock, "The same one, Devil Berzink?" The father answered yes and rushed to his daughter, saying that these were all just rumors. "He can't really be the devil." The father said he met with his predecessor. Once upon a time, Chloe decided that, in any case, She had no right to refuse her father, and she could only become a nun. Therefore, she should come to terms with it. She told her father that she understood, and he shared with his wife that Chloe agreed to accept the proposal. This was great news for them. Isabel added that Count Bersink is a very impetuous man, and therefore he wants her to personally come to Bersink and announce her consent to the marriage. The girl didn't understand how this was possible, so right away, without engagement and preparation, her father said that he would give her the fastest horses, and you need to leave as early as possible. Chloe decided that this would be her last show of submission. Marrying into a prestigious family is her duty as the daughter of an earl. Isabel said we could start packing tomorrow to go this week, but Chloe interrupted her. She will pack her things now and leave for Bersink tomorrow. Looking out of the carriage, Chloe noticed that life in Bersink was in full swing. There were a lot of people there. And this is unusual, because the city is border. The girl noticed the same river near the border. The sluice gates were in good condition and looked secure, Chloe noted. Without the skillful rule of all the previous lords, the border city would not have been as prosperous. The girl thought, what is he really like, Friedrich Bersink? When her carriage arrived at the castle gates, she got out of the carriage and was surprised. More than 10 servants lined up in front of her to greet her. Butler Nolan thanked her for coming all the way to them. He said that all the servants were looking forward to Lady Chloe's arrival. Chloe asked where Mr. Friedrich was. Noland replied that he was unable to attend and gave her the letter. She should open it now and read it. Chloe read in the letter an apology for the fact that the Count would not be able to meet her. She could address all questions to the servants. The girl thought this letter was very sweet, and she was glad that the reason for his absence was not that he did not want to see her. Then, all the servants ran at Nolan's command. He told them to hurry before Lady Chloe changed her mind. The maids took Chloe to her chambers. In the room, the first thing the maids did was give the girl a box with a dress. They said that their master asked the lady to wear this dress if she liked it. Chloe really liked the dress. She was excited to put it on. The maids admired her beauty and how sweet she was. After all, she was kind to them. The maids were happy that their master would now live with such a sweet girl like Chloe. The girl wondered if no one really wanted to marry him, and she doesn't even have his portrait, which is sent before the wedding. She didn't know his age or his marriage history or anything. Chloe only knew about him that he was rumored to be the devil of Bersink. But what can you do? She herself chose him, and not the monastery. There were no guests at the wedding, either from her or the groom's side. The wedding was organized in such a hurry that the Count did not even meet his bride. Did he really not show his face to her on purpose so that she wouldn't get scared and run away? And she would like to talk to him. Chloe has dreamed of getting married for so long. But she didn't care who she was. Just to escape from a home where she was not loved. She hoped so much that after marriage her life would be better. But the groom is no longer Emile, and the wedding leaves much to be desired. But she must move on. Near the altar, Chloe saw her groom. He was very tall. She thought, this man will become my husband. When the priest called them by their names, the groom Friedrich Bersink and the bride Chloe Brewer, the Count looked at the girl with such an angry look that she was scared. She understood now why no one wanted to be with him. This evil look scares many girls. But on the other hand, she felt tenderness in the letter from him. The priest declared them husband and wife. He said that now they could seal their vows with a kiss. But Frederick hastened to leave the church where the wedding took place. Chloe was upset that she was not welcome in this house either. She again remembered her family, where she was a little girl and they didn't need her either. The next morning, Chloe was having breakfast alone. She asked Noland where Friedrich was. He replied that he would not be there, and he didn't get sick. The girl immediately became upset. I thought that she was so undesirable that he didn't want to kiss her. Why is she here anyway? Butler Noland handed the girl an envelope. He said to read it if you have problems in bed with Mr. Friedrich. Chloe was worried. Noland reassured her, saying that Friedrich was waiting for her. She remembered his evil look and doubted it. The maid helped Chloe change into a nightrobe with lace and said that she looked very beautiful. The girl thought, what was the point of this beauty if she was not desired by him anyway? Chloe walked into his room and sat on the bed, holding an envelope in her hands. Friedrich was not there yet, and she did not know whether he would come at all. The girl remembered the words of her mentor. Don't forget that you are a lady, and therefore should not act first. While Chloe was thinking, Friedrich entered the room. He sat down on her bed and didn't say a word, just as he had since the moment she arrived. Chloe introduced herself to her husband and thanked him for the offer and his indulgence. He didn't answer, just sat with the envelope in his hands. Friedrich motioned for her to sit next to him and opened the envelope. Another letter? Chloe thought. But he started reading. He read everything he wanted to tell her. He had everything written on a piece of paper. What is his name? How glad he is to see her. Chloe asked him to stop. She said he didn't need to read from a piece of paper. He turned away from her, and she thought that he was not feeling well. When the girl wanted to touch his face, he quickly wrapped himself in a blanket. Now he looked like a giant caterpillar. And now what I can do? Chloe remembered the envelope. She read in the letter that Friedrich is a very shy person and cannot communicate face to face. Nolan suggested that Chloe give him paper and a pen so that he could write to her. Chloe thought, is this the devil Biersink? With a look that can stop a man's heart but at the same time shy. But Chloe realized that the fact that Friedrich did not come to meet her, did not want to kiss her, was not because he hated her, but because he was simply embarrassed. Then the girl suggested that the Count communicate using paper and a pen and slip them under his blanket. Friedrich took the paper. Chloe thanked Friedrich for his work and all the preparations made for the wedding. He replied that he had done what was right and that she should not thank him. The girl asked if he wanted to chat without paper. A simple nod of the head will suffice. He wrapped himself in a blanket and sat on the bed like a teddy bear. Chloe asked what worried her the most. He behaved this way not because she was unpleasant to her, but because he has some difficulties with communication. Friedrich wrote the answer on paper. He apologized for his behavior. He just doesn't know what to do when she's around. So he ran away from her after the wedding. When the guy offered to make amends, Chloe refused. She said it wasn't necessary. They've already figured it all out. The girl turned to her husband. Everyone has their own advantages and disadvantages. I won't be angry with you if you don't do something well. Chloe reminded them that they would need to make post-wedding visits and network. And besides, it would be nice to dispel the terrible rumors about him. She decided for herself that Mr. Friedrich was not at all what everyone thought of him. Yes, the face is rude, but all the words about the devil are complete lies. Chloe decided that they should dispel these rumors. She thought of getting him to talk first, and then they would go out into the world. And so, step by step, they will succeed. The girl suggested that the guy talk a little and take care of each other, and they will be like a married couple. He liked her proposal. Then Chloe decided to clarify that given their situation, the wedding night would not take place, and she can just go to bed. Although the wedding did not take place the way the girl wanted, and her husband is shy, she will have to overcome a lot. But for the first time in a long time, she felt her heart enveloped in warmth. In the morning, she decided to ask the maids about the master. They all unanimously said that he was a very good person, and not at all like the devil, but rather like a good gnome. The maids said that because of their master's rude face and rumors about him, marriage proposals were rejected by brides. And that's why they're so happy she's here. They were happy to help her, as a full-fledged wife of the Biersink family. Chloe thought that she would try to succeed in this city, and this place would become home to her. Chloe went to breakfast. She wondered if her husband would keep her company. After all, she woke up alone in bed. She entered the dining room. Friedrich sat at the table and had breakfast. She told him, "Good morning." He got nervous. Then Chloe suggested that he start their speech practice with a greeting. The girl asked if he agreed. Then he should just shake his head. Chloe greeted again, and the Count answered her. "Good morning." Chloe started talking about the weather, that it would be sunny, and he answered her. She wanted to pat him on the head and praise him. But she decided it was better to hold back for now. For the next few days, Chloe could only study the Biersink family and get used to the rhythm of life on the estate. She also kept an eye on him. She liked to watch how Friedrich walked around his city every day and handed envelopes to workers with pleasant praise for good work or gifts they needed. Then she took part in the reception of the head of the Merchants Guild along with Noland. The guest was very pleased with her. She enjoyed helping her husband and family. After the reception, Chloe discovered a rose and an envelope left for her by Friedrich. He thanked her for her help in receiving the visitor, and will continue to rely on her. In the evening, when they were sitting in the bedroom again, Chloe asked Friedrich how old he was, and he answered her that 28, and she told him that he was 9 years older than her. "This year I turned 19, although all people give her more than 20. and her stepmother and Emil reproached her that she had neither a cute appearance nor a character. To this, Friedrich wrote, "You behave calmly, and your words and actions are characterized by prudence." She was pleased to read this from him, but she didn't remember how she hid Emil. She wondered how the Count would react when he found out about this. Chloe decided that she wanted to see him display different emotions. Chloe really wanted to get to know her husband better and understand him. They went to bed. She wished him good night, and he answered, "Calm." Lying in bed, Chloe thought that now she had quiet, calm days, which she did not have in her parents' house, and leisurely communication alone with another person. When she remembered her parents' house, she realized that she didn't miss them at all, and she doesn't even read the letters that, for some reason, Beatrice sends her. The girl now wanted to devote all her attention to this house and the support of this person, who didn't want to talk about himself at all. But she had no idea that she could cause him such pain. It was the next morning when they were drinking tea and having breakfast alone. Chloe liked the fact that they were alone, sitting opposite each other, and she decided to ask right now what his childhood was like. She wanted to figure it out. There must be an explanation for his shyness. She asked him if something happened in childhood that led to difficulties in communicating with people. The girl continued that she didn't know about his parents at all. Only according to rumors, Dad passed away 6 years ago, and practically nothing is known about Mom. Chloe asked Friedrich to trust her. Having figured it out, they will be able to find the reason for his shyness, and it will just be practice in communication. But he was silent, and the girl said that if she retreats, nothing will change. Then she asked which of his parents he was more like. At this point, Friedrich slammed his fist on the table and stood up. Chloe thought she had hurt him and had now lost his trust. She was wondering what to do now. Should she apologize? But Friedrich came up and wanted to stroke her hand, when suddenly the door opened and Noland entered. He reported that at the border the merchant guild was attacked by robber knights. The Count ordered to gather all the soldiers and headed out. Chloe was left alone. She went to the window to watch Friedrich. He was wearing knight's armor on a horse. As soon as she turned away from the window, he also turned around to look at her in the window. The girl was worried that she couldn't even apologize for this situation. Butler Noland approached her and brought her tea. He said that it was Mr. Friedrich who ordered to bring her tea and sit with her at breakfast. The girl was surprised that he, hastily dressing in knightly armor, took care of her. In addition, he wrote Noland on paper to tell her about his parents. Noland said, "Since Lady Chloe is now part of this house, she has a right to know about his parents." Chloe wanted to show Friedrich that he could trust her, his wife, and he, it turns out, has long accepted her as a member of his family. The girl asked Noland for forgiveness for insisting on her husband's revelations. He replied that it was a natural desire to get to know each other better. Noland asked the girl to give him the opportunity to talk about Friedrich's past, and in return he asked for help to save him from the trap of this past. Then Noland asked if she had heard of the devil Borsink. In fact, this nickname came from the past gentleman. That is, from my father. A long time ago, even before the wedding, my father attended a ball. He was there with his fiance. And at some point I didn't find her nearby. He went looking for her and found her with her lover. A guy in a bloody shirt ran into the ballroom, and Borsink himself brought the girl's bloody body. Borsink pointed his sword at the guy's throat and said that for adultery with his bride he would be beheaded. People who watched this said that a person could not do such a thing, but only the devil himself could. And during the war with a neighboring state, the rumor spread. Chloe asked if he really was such a terrifying person. Noland responded that he was rude, arrogant, and cruel, and did not trust anyone but himself. Then the girl asked, "And Mr. Friedrich?" He replied that the same could be said about him. He is the illegitimate son of the former master. Mr. Friedrich's biological mother was the Count's so-called mistress. She did not talk about the child and hid it so that the former master would not take it away. As a result, they found out about him when he was 10 years old. He was taken from his mother and taken to this estate. The legal wife was furious and the master simply kicked her out into the street. Little Friedrich was exhausted every day to strengthen his physical condition and was stuffed with knowledge in order to turn him into a future skilled lord. Every mistake he made was followed by a blow or kick from his father. He was also often locked in a room as punishment. At heart, Frederick was a gentle person, which is why he was afraid of his father. And the more fear shackled him, the more mistaken he was. And the master again became furious and punished him. At first he was a cheerful and sociable child, but day by day he became more gloomy and spoke less and less. During the 2 years of his stay in the mansion, The former master constantly demanded the impossible from him. Given his attitude, nothing worked. He was disappointed and called Friedrich a misunderstanding and a shame for the Bürsing family. The father waved his hand at his son and locked him in the room. Chloe was shocked. Noland continued. The boy was locked in a room and no one was allowed to talk to him, just put out the food. And so it was for 10 years. Any servant who spoke to him was fired or beaten. After 10 years, only he and another maid remained of the servants. When the previous master died and they were able to let Friedrich out of the room, for the first 6 months he could not even go out into the corridor. 2 years later, he somehow managed to remain in society. After his first appearance, things temporarily worsened again. As soon as he appeared at the ball, the guests immediately took him for his father and called him Devil Bürsing. He saw his father reflected in the mirror and felt bad again. Chloe blamed you for reminding him of those events. Noland blamed himself for the fact that he was able to release the boy only after the death of the former master. Noland considered himself a coward, and Chloe realized that everyone has their own regrets. The girl saw that Noland was on Friedrich's side. She herself would like to become a support for her husband. But what if she hurts him again? So I decided to keep my distance for now. Looking out the window, Noland said that Mr. Friedrich had returned and he would go to meet him. Chloe decided that she wanted to be a real spouse and make the relationship work. So she told Noland that she was also going to meet her husband. He may not want to see her just yet, but that doesn't matter. As Friedrich dismounted his horse, Chloe greeted him. Welcome home. She didn't know if he was feeling any discomfort right now. Her husband approached her. She bowed her head guiltily, and he walked past her and headed into the castle. The girl began to cry out of resentment. She took out a handkerchief to wipe away her tears, and she remembered how glad she was that someone supported her then. I remembered that evening. Chloe wondered if she could have offended anyone if she had a cute appearance like Beatrice. And Chloe always says out loud what she is sure of. Suddenly the butler Noland called her. He brought her a letter from Friedrich. It said that he was in the back room on the 2nd floor. Noland explained that this was his old room. When something goes wrong, he often sits there. Chloe thanked him and went to apologize. The girl knocked on the door and said that she would like to look him in the face when she apologizes. As a sign of agreement, she asked him to knock once. Chloe started with Noland telling her about his father, his childhood, and his 10 years here in this room, and about everything that interested her. She thanked him for this, and she asked for forgiveness for the fact that she does not know how to remain silent and has no sense of tact. Because of this, everyone avoids her. Chloe said that she hurt him and was ready to sink into the ground in shame. She asked him not to hate her. She wanted to say that she just wants him to... But before she could finish, the door opened and she fell straight into his arms. Chloe didn't know what to do, apologize and quickly leave. But he hugged her so tightly, and she pressed herself close to him. I don't hate you, Chloe suddenly heard from Friedrich, and he repeated again, I don't hate you. Then he became embarrassed again and went to get the paper. The girl at that moment was looking at the room in which he spent 10 years. There were a lot of books and a mirror covered with white cloth. Friedrich wrote, I don't hate you, and I'm also not angry that you ask about the past. Then he wrote that he was pathetic and could not communicate normally with her. Chloe was indignant at how he could say such things to himself. After all, Mr. Friedrich works so hard to change. Friedrich showed her his old room and asked if she really didn't feel contempt. Chloe replied, Of course not. Chloe replied that she was angry with the previous master for doing this to him. But her feelings for him will never change. Then Friedrich took Chloe by the hand and led her to their room. He admitted that since she arrived, he began to change and would soon begin to be proud of himself. The girl asked if she was making him uncomfortable, and he replied, I'm lost without you. Chloe burst into tears and said she was happy. She was so embarrassed that she had been holding back her tears for a long time, and now she burst into tears. It was as if something banged inside. She was looking for a handkerchief. Friedrich handed her a handkerchief and told her that it was okay to cry, and that time she was holding back her tears. Then Chloe realized that it was him last time. He is the stranger who gave her his scarf on the day of the masquerade. The girl thought that it was not at all a coincidence that that stranger became her husband. After all, her stepmother sent her photo to the grooms. Chloe asked her husband, So you felt sorry for me, and they sent you a marriage proposal out of pity? To which he replied, No, not like that. And he wrote, I just fell in love with you at first sight. Friedrich blushed with embarrassment. And Chloe asked if the crush passed when he got to know her better. Her husband wrote to her that he fell in love with her even more. Friedrich opened the window because they felt hot from such confessions. Chloe thought, he likes not only my appearance but also my difficult character. She wanted to hug him right now, but sudden touches would definitely make him embarrassed, and she asked him to sit on a chair. Chloe asked her husband to look her in the eyes. She cupped his face in her hands and told him, "If you don't mind, I'd like to see that face every day." Mr. Friedrich asked if she was scared. She replied that she wasn't scared at all and that she really liked his eyes. He smiled. The girl really wanted to kiss her husband on the forehead because she saw his smile, but she reminded herself that she was a lady and should not be the first to show feelings. Here, a little lower. Chloe controlled Friedrich's fingers in the evening in the bedroom. "Here are the lips," she said, guiding his fingers towards them. Mr. Friedrich, blindfolded, ran his fingers over Chloe's lips, and 2 weeks before that he couldn't even touch her. Chloe decided to find out the reason why he couldn't touch her while looking into her eyes. He replied that he was shy when she looked at him. Then the girl suggested trying it blindfolded. He was funny and clumsy, and couldn't even find where she was sitting. First she took his hands. He touched her hands. This was already a big step for him. Chloe thought, when she gets used to it, let's move on. Her husband suggested she try hugging. During the hug, the girl remembered that just recently he was a caterpillar. But during this time, I overcame myself and moved forward. Someday we will be without a bandage and without clothes, Chloe thought. Friedrich hugged her and asked if she was in pain. She replied that not at all, clinging to him. Every evening they touched each other with the bandage, gradually getting used to it. And today, finally, Friedrich touched her lips as she asked. Then, Chloe decided it was time. Not to practice for her wedding night, but for herself, she asked her husband to kiss her. She directed it to her lips, and he slowly approached, first kissed her near the lips, and then they merged in a kiss. Chloe closed her eyes in pleasure. Immediately after the kiss, Friedrich removed the blindfold, and he told his wife that now he wants to kiss her without a blindfold. Of course she didn't mind. The next morning, Chloe's maids, during her morning routine, discussed Mr. Friedrich. They said that the gnome, as they called the master, had disappeared. Now Mr. Friedrich began to talk and address them personally. They believed that it was all thanks to her. His face brightens every day. Chloe told them that Mr. Friedrich achieved this himself, and she only helped him a little. They insisted that such progress would not have happened without strong motivation. Now Mr. Friedrich walks around the city and asks the workers if everything is okay with them, if they have enough. And it's all thanks to her. The next day in the dining room, all the servants surrounded Mr. Friedrich. He asked them if Chloe would laugh at him. "No, of course, what's there to laugh about?" they answered. And Noland was of the same opinion. "Oh, that's easy," he said when he saw Chloe enter the dining room. Chloe entered the hall and was surprised that so many people had gathered around her husband. And then she noticed his new hairstyle. Friedrich became embarrassed and told her, "I guess I look ridiculous." Chloe was delighted and said, "So wonderful." The girl reminded him how she said that she wanted to see his face every day. He replied that she liked his eyes then. "I was very happy then," Friedrich said. "And I'm happy too," said Chloe. The maids looked at them without taking their eyes off and showed mercy. While Friedrich and Noland were discussing matters, the maid whispered in Chloe's ear that the master was very worried about his hairstyle and consulted with them. After all, he was afraid that she wouldn't like it. The maid said that he was madly in love with her, and I looked much better. When Friedrich called the maid by name, Chloe was upset. He now called everyone by name, except her, and he addressed her as you. "Would you like to try it?" Friedrich asked Chloe, and she wondered if it was normal that it bothered her so much. Chloe politely declined, telling him she was already full. The girl asked everyone for forgiveness and politely retired to her room. In her room, Chloe was crying, lying on her bed. "Almost 6 months have passed since she moved here, and it's much better here than in my parents' house. All this is thanks to every servant who diligently takes care of her comfort. And she certainly didn't want to go back and especially leave Mr. Friedrich. As the maids say, it becomes lighter day by day. But it's a shame that he still hasn't started calling her by name." Chloe was afraid that he would no longer need her. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on her door. It was Mr. Friedrich. "Can I come in?" he asked. "Oh no, again he caught me in a deplorable state," Chloe thought. She straightened her disheveled hair, and Friedrich approached her apologetically. He asked if everything was okay. Maybe she's not feeling well. Her husband seemed very handsome to her, especially up close. He was so caring. Her husband offered her medicine, but Chloe replied that she was not sick, just a little tired. She noticed how he looked at her. The emotions on the face have now become more expressive. Frederick is changing at a rapid pace, but he doesn't even call her by name. "Is something bothering you?" Friedrich asked Chloe. She answered no, but she thought to herself that they were so subtly noticing changes in each other. Chloe was debating whether to tell or not, and it wouldn't be nice to lie to him, and he will immediately notice the deception. But this kind of thing... She didn't know how to say it. Friedrich asked her that it was something that she could not talk to him about. Chloe thought she wouldn't like it if he was so silent. She would even be upset if he went off topic like that. The girl remembered how he described her as calm and reasonable, and now she didn't want to make herself look so immature. And she still answered him, "Name." And she said that she still wouldn't understand why he didn't address her by name, but only by you. Friedrich thought for a moment he didn't understand. Then Chloe explained that he addresses the servants by name, and only contact her. Mr. Friedrich replied that it was written so in the book that she found in his room, that when speaking in person it is better to call the person by name. Chloe continued that they worked on shyness together and are generally spouses, and she always remains just you, and not Chloe. Finally, she threw out all her emotions and said, "I would be very pleased if Mr. Friedrich called me Chloe." At first, the husband was silent, but then he said that he needed time for this. He added that he was embarrassed to address her by name. It turns out that Chloe is special for him, the girl thought and felt pleased. She whispered in his ear that she would wait for the day when he would call her by name. Chloe moved towards her husband and whispered in his ear that she would really look forward to the day when he would call her by name. "Don't say that anymore. This excitement is too strong for me." Friedrich answered her, barely restraining himself. He admitted that he was ready to endure every night, just not to hurt her. Because he is big and she is small. He doesn't want to hurt her. Chloe realized that the very restrained hugs and light kisses were not only due to excitement, and there was also such a fear of harming her. Friedrich said that when he touched her, his head began to boil with heat, and it seems that he is about to lose control and start touching her as he wants, and he will crush her. Chloe replied that he wouldn't crush her if he touched her a little harder, to which her husband replied that she would probably be hurt, because when he was grabbed by a man as big and strong as himself, it hurt a lot. He always felt pain when his father grabbed him, and he added that he now has the same body as his father, and he does not want to cause her the same pain. He said that one day he himself would become like his father. Then Chloe said to him, "Mr. Friedrich, please touch me. You yourself have known pain. Everything will be fine. You are a good man." The girl took his hand and stroked her face with it. And Friedrich asked, "What about the bandage?" Chloe replied, "So be it." Then Friedrich asked if he could touch her as he wanted. She replied that she could. He looked into her eyes and she alternated between looking at him and closing her eyes. Chloe seemed to be teasing him. The guy wanted to kiss her. He asked her permission to kiss her since the evening had not yet come. Is it possible now? She allowed it, having said that he can touch her whenever he wants at any time, even during the day, even at night. Touch and kiss. And he kissed her, for the first time without a bandage. Each time, under the bandage, he had different sensations, not like this one. Chloe also really liked the kiss, but she remembered her manners. And I decided that it was better to continue in the evening. Friedrich seemed to read her thoughts and asked her permission to go further tonight. No bandage, and as far as he can. In other words, will he really go to the very end? Chloe thought. And then she will finally become Mr. Friedrich's woman. And the married couple said goodbye until the evening. For the whole day they went their separate ways. Each of them was looking forward to this evening most of all in their lives. Mr. Friedrich sat thoughtfully in the dining room. The servant boys noticed that now he looks like a real devil sink. Meanwhile, Chloe entered the dining room, saw her husband, and turned to leave, apologizing. The servants again suspected something was wrong. And in the corridor where Chloe ran away, the girls' maids asked if everything was okay with her. She blushed, but she told them that everything was fine. Chloe couldn't just go ahead and tell everyone that she was worried, that she's just nervous about her wedding night. That evening at dinner, the couple did not say a word to each other. When the maid offered the master delivery, he said that dinner was over. The maids were discussing in the kitchen that something wrong was happening with the master and his wife. Noland heard this and immediately understood everything, and wished good luck to Mr. Friedrich. In the evening, while bathing in the bathroom, Chloe thought about how until now she had thoroughly washed herself, kept her body clean, and was very sorry that her efforts were in vain. But today, everything is different. Today, Mr. Friedrich will see it in its entirety. This both confused and worried her, but she thought that she would get used to making love over time. Exactly. I have never told Mr. Friedrich that I love him, Chloe thought. She caught herself thinking that she liked him. After all, when Emil broke off the engagement, she did not give it any importance, because she rejected the thought of marital love. More precisely, I thought I had thrown it away. After all, with no one else did she feel as comfortable as with Friedrich. On the contrary, he is the only one who makes her heart beat faster. First of all, she feels happiness just by being near him. She couldn't believe that she hadn't said it out loud. She also forced Mr. Friedrich to write the nonsense that he wrote to himself on paper, about the fact that he is pathetic, because he cannot even say about his feelings out loud. No, she didn't want to leave it like that, and she decided to immediately go to him and tell him everything. Chloe jumped out of the bathroom and asked the maid to get everything ready as quickly as possible. Well, she was already wearing a chic nightgown. She was nervous and wasn't sure that when she entered the bedroom, she would be able to tell him everything about her feelings. This means we need to do it earlier. But why is it so difficult to tell someone how you feel? I wonder if you felt that way when you opened up to her. With the thought that this needed to be done quickly, she ran to the bedroom. Her husband, Mr. Friedrich, was already standing near the room. Chloe asked if he was waiting for her. Without waiting for an answer, Chloe said, "Mr. Friedrich, I need to tell you something." "So what's next?" She couldn't find words at all. Mr. Friedrich did not understand what was going on and waited for what she wanted to say. Chloe decided that the love should be mutual. After all, he loves her too. Chloe made up her mind and confessed her love to him. "I love you, Mr. Friedrich, with all my heart." And she saw his smile. The girl told him that she really wanted to tell him this before they entered the bedroom, so that he knows exactly what feelings she has for him. Chloe told her husband that today they would unite not only in their bodies, but also in their hearts. He hugged her tightly and said, "Chloe, Chloe." She finally heard her name from him. Chloe felt hot from the hands and voice of Mr. Friedrich, but she thought, "Just don't let go, please." And at home she always felt out of place. And then her heart dried up and seemed to work with a creak. But now she heard his clear knock. In his arms, her beloved man. Yes, her place is here. There is no need to sit here as a quiet mouse, just so as not to anger anyone and not be exiled away. Now she is in a calm and kind place. And no matter what happens, Mr. Friedrich is always there for her and will always support her. He picked her up and carried her into the bedroom. Her shoes fell to the floor, and she herself ended up on the bed, and her husband was on top of her. She used to think his face was scary, but Chloe doesn't think so anymore. His natural tenderness is visible in his face. Friedrich leaned over Chloe's face, cupping it in his hands and kissed her lips. Then, he unbuttoned her robe and said that he could not control his emotions and restrain himself. Chloe replied that he didn't need to control himself so strictly. She would be fine. Even though she said so, she still felt awkward. Friedrich did not feel very good from excitement, so much so that my nose began to bleed. Chloe begged him to touch her. He didn't dare, when she was already thinking that maybe it wouldn't work out so quickly, and that she would have to wait and practice, as they had already done with the kiss. Friedrich put his hand on her. "Chloe, I love you," said the husband. Chloe flinched, and he was afraid that he had hurt her, and she answered him, "Everything is fine. You are not like your father. You are a kind person." "So don't be afraid to touch me," Chloe said. Friedrich apologized for possibly hurting her. He said he didn't understand such things, and he asked if she was fine now. Chloe said yes, and he was happy about it. After all, he admitted that he learned everything from the book that she gave him, but he didn't have confidence yet. The girl wondered what kind of book he could have about this, but her husband suggested that she put his knowledge into practice, and she, of course, agreed. Then Friedrich began to kiss her tenderly. She asked if he really read all this in the book, and he was silent and just watched the expression on her face. Her husband asked her how she liked it, and Chloe thought that by her appearance everything should be clear, and he was glad that she liked it. It seemed to Chloe that the book had nothing to do with it. Her pleasure was caused precisely by the sensation of Mr. Friedrich's touch. Chloe became shy and covered her face with a pillow. Friedrich said that she was so sweet that he would like to look at her beautiful face, and therefore asked her to remove the pillow. Not once after her mother's death was she called sweetheart. She remembered her childhood and her stepmother and sister. Chloe was glad that her husband now thought she was cute, like her mother. Her husband threw her pillow on the floor. He kissed her and said, "I never thought that I would meet someone who would accept me like this." "Chloe, thank you for this miracle," Friedrich told her. And Chloe replied that this was not a miracle, that she just believed that everything would work out. She told how at first he was embarrassed to even speak and was afraid to look him in the face, but she believed that after a while they would be able to open up to each other like they did now. In any case, they have already merged together. It's because she loves him. And at that moment her husband called her, "Chloe, honey, Chloe," and Chloe said, "Mr. Friedrich, I am happy with you." When Friedrich got out of bed, Chloe noticed terrible bruises on his thighs. She asked him in horror what it was and where it came from. Friedrich replied that he calmed her down so as not to lose control and not harm her. He squeezed the skin on his thigh tightly. Chloe didn't understand why she should cause herself such pain and why she should endure it. She suggested washing his wounds with cold water. Although Chloe was exhausted, there was the greatest happiness in their hearts. Chloe thought, "Mr. Friedrich, thank you for finding me." So the couple became truly united, and on the same day they had a new problem. Chloe believed that this barrier was too high for them, and if it were up to her, she would prefer a simpler step. And Friedrich thought the same. It was an invitation to the royal ball and they could not refuse it. All the nobles of the country were probably invited to this ball, but they were not very willing to return under such close attention. And Friedrich said that it means the time has come. At that moment, Noland looked into the office and said that they had a visitor. The butler offered to take charge of the guest, but the master decided to go out to him himself. Chloe wished him luck. The girl wondered if everything would go well with his first guest. As far as she knew, the council envoy was far from stupid, and the head of the merchant guild she met with turned out to be kind. The servants and maids asked Chloe if everything was all right with the master. She decided that she had to believe in him. Otherwise, the others would worry even more. And Chloe told them that Mr. Friedrich would handle it and everything would be fine. This is what happened, and in the evening the girl praised her husband. She said Nolan praised him. After all, thanks to his presence, the atmosphere of the meeting was more businesslike. Friedrich thanked Chloe for the compliment. "At this rate, the future ball will be of no use to you," said Chloe. But she noticed that her husband had not yet completely gotten rid of the tension. Then she kissed him on the cheek, and he began to kiss her and they fell on the bed together. Then the husband quickly fell asleep and she admired him. At that time, Chloe believed that Mr. Friedrich was making progress and would be able to integrate back into society, if not for a letter from her half-sister Beatrice to Lady Daphne. "Please tell me everything you know about Count Bersink, even the smallest things that seem trivial. Your friend, Beatrice Brower." Chloe and her maids had fun decorating eggs for Easter. Mr. Nolan told Chloe that they hadn't had such an exciting Easter atmosphere in decades. Nolan thanked Chloe for this, and she thanked him in return, saying that she too had not had such a good spring for a long time. He was wondering why the girl didn't tell her almost anything about herself. Nolan thought she might not have the best memories of her parents' home. Mr. Friedrich came to Noland. He saw Chloe and took her hands. He sweetly wiped the paint off her face. The maids admired them. The butler asked how his meeting with the visitor went. Friedrich replied that it was not bad after all. The guest was a pleasant person. Chloe thought that he had largely overcome his shyness, so he had a good chance of coping with the ball. Otherwise, Chloe would have to ask her friend from the capital to invite them to a smaller banquet. Friedrich interrupted her thoughts with his question. He invited her to visit the fair in the city for Easter, and Chloe thought that there would be a lot of people in a place like this. Friedrich said that the last time he went to the fair was as a child with his mother. Even before moving to this estate, it was his happy memory from childhood. One of the few. The maids reminded Chloe that she had never been out into the city since she moved here. Friedrich insisted that Chloe would really like it. And besides, he wanted to finally see the situation in the city in person. Chloe agreed to go with him. Getting out of the carriage in the city, the couple noticed the looks of the townspeople on them. Chloe told Friedrich to smile at them. He still needed to be taught to smile naturally. Chloe led her husband to a shop with Easter goods. She asked the seller for permission to look at his product. She liked the Easter bunny. The girl asked her husband if he was really so cute. Mr. Friedrich replied that he was dear. And at this moment, all the townspeople were watching this couple, which was shocking to them. The gentleman told the seller that his wife liked his product and he was buying this Easter bunny. Then various sellers began to invite them to buy their goods. At this time, Lady Daphne was passing by the fair in a carriage. In her hands was a letter from Beatrice in which she asked to tell her what was known about the devil Bursink. She asked the coachman to stop the carriage. She wondered if the man who was called the devil was walking around the fair like that. And in fact, he turned out to be a nice person. Even though it was Chloe who was next to Rin, Daphne still couldn't forgive her for this. Lady Daphne and Chloe knew each other before Chloe married Mr. Friedrich. They met at balls and Daphne was friends with Beatrice. Once at the ball, Daphne showed off her new jewelry, a necklace with a huge heart-shaped stone. She has always been a fashionista. Then the girls surrounded her and asked where she got it from, to which she replied, Bursink. They were afraid that this was the very place where the devil lived. Daphne replied that they didn't really know anything. Bursink is located on the border, so a variety of goods are traded there. And she boasted that she often buys something for herself there when she visits those lands in winter. Beatrice wanted the same, but it was too far for her to get to Bursink. Daphne was angry that Beatrice was bragging about her proximity to the capital. Her only joy was that she was an adopted daughter from the Count's second wife. Her friends asked her to buy them something next time, to which Lady Daphne replied that foreign goods do not look as good on everyone as they do on her. Daphne decided to demonstrate this on Chloe. She asked me to try on this gorgeous necklace. She wanted to prove that it would not look right on a plain girl. But when she fastened her necklace on Chloe, all her friends complimented Chloe, having said that it compliments her even better than Daphne. Daphne was terribly angry about this then. And besides, since there was no woman in the Bursink family for a long time, she alone wore all the local jewelry. But now Chloe has appeared. No, Daphne could not allow this. Since Beatrice stole Emile from Chloe, then why can't I do the same? Having been abandoned twice, Chloe will definitely become a nun. And in addition, Daphne would become Countess Bursink. 2 birds with 1 stone. Wait for me, you sexy devil, she said to herself. Mr. Friedrich hurried Chloe that it was time for them to leave, but she couldn't tear herself away from the groovy little man. Everyone invited them to look at their goods, but one merchant was unhappy with how quickly people forgot all the bad things his father had done. And when her grandson wanted to approach the master, she forbade it. The old woman reminded the boy's mother how the previous gentleman had hit the boy to death with his carriage. He also accused her of not paying attention. In addition, the master ordered her to be flogged for her misconduct. She screamed that he could not be their lord. He created a danger for the child and blamed the parents. "You are not a man, you are a devil," she shouted. Since then, the old woman has stopped trusting those who are addressed as my lord. Meanwhile, the boy broke away from his mother and ran straight to the master. He stumbled and fell in front of Mr. Friedrich. People at the fair froze and watched what would happen next. The boy was crying, and his grandmother called him and ran to them. It seemed to her that this was Devil Bursink next to her grandson, and when Friedrich saw the boy crying, he remembered himself as a child, how it hurt him, and he asked him, "Does it hurt?" Chloe wanted to intervene, but didn't when she saw Friedrich talking to the child. He asked if he was hurt and patted him on the head. Mom and grandmother stood, not knowing how to react. Chloe was surprised too. Friedrich asked her for a wind-up toy for the boy. Mr. Friedrich gave the boy a wind-up man and said, "I'm glad you're safe, so hold it." Then he called the boy's parents. The boy's mother apologized for the trouble her son caused them, and her mother-in-law ran up to the master, saying that she was the boy's grandmother. Friedrich knelt in front of her and apologized for the fact that the asphalt was not smooth. He believed that by doing so, he endangered her child. The old lady thanked Mr. Friedrich, and since then her opinion about my lords has changed, and Chloe was happy that this was her husband, a man she respects to the core. After that incident, they went to the city much more often. Judging by the attitude of the townspeople, they also realized that Mr. Friedrich was not at all like his father. At the same time, good practice for communication appeared. After all, everyone could ask for advice or make a request while they were walking together. So, one day that old lady from the fair called the master for a minute. She brought him to a girl who would like him to revoke his already given consent to marriage. Chloe was in the castle at the time. She was very worried that her husband was delayed. He was supposed to visit a tailor in the city along with a servant, but there was something else that bothered her. It has been a long time since there was a single letter from Beatrice. She told her husband last night about the letters she had not opened. Chloe thought that the Brower family was probably also invited to the royal ball, and both Beatrice and Emile would most likely be there. And she didn't want to see them. She didn't care about Emile. She just didn't want Mr. Friedrich to know how she was treated at home. Friedrich and the girl were sitting at a table in the tent. The gentleman asked what was the reason for her reluctance to get married. The girl said that she would only answer in private. The old lady and the servant left the room and left them alone. Friedrich told the servant that everything was fine. The gentleman said that it was indeed his responsibility to issue marriage licenses to local residents. But if she wants to cancel what she already has, then he must find out the reason. Daphne thought that he was even cuter up close, although his face was a little scary. Chloe doesn't deserve to be as pretty as she thinks. The girl took off her hood. She shed a tear and said that man was very cruel and he beat her. Then she took off her cape and invited him to see where he was hitting. Friedrich jumped away from her as he realized that she was going to seduce him. She asked him to touch her. He ran out of the room from her. Then, the old woman and the master's servant entered the room. Daphne lied that he touched her, but everyone rushed to the master to ask how he was feeling. The girl did not understand why no one believed her. The old lady wanted to say that it was because he was a good person. But suddenly, the old lady recognized her as her regular customer. After all, they are the first jewelers in Bersink, and their regular customer cannot be a simple peasant woman. She realized that she was up to something. Daphne said that the old lady had mistaken herself, and she replied that she perfectly remembers each of her customers, and she even remembers what she bought. The old woman turned to Mr. Friedrich. "It seems that this woman is from the nobility. Is she familiar to you?" He answered no, since he rarely visits Soviet society. Then the old woman grabbed the girl by the hand and threw her out the door. Having said that, from now on she is forbidden to be in Bersink, and it doesn't matter that she is her regular customer. The merchant apologized to the master for bringing this girl to him, and he apologized in response for not coping with the situation himself. In parting, the merchant said that their guild would keep an eye on her so that she would no longer be seen and cause him problems. While they were riding in the carriage, the servant asked Mr. Friedrich if everything was all right, and he replied that now he doesn't know whether all other noble women are like this one. He just knew only Chloe, and she was special. Chloe came out to meet him, and Friedrich hugged her tightly. He appreciated her for having her. Chloe said she was worried he had been gone for so long. He apologized to her, and she said that everything is fine since he is with her now. Meanwhile, Daphne was in her room nervous and wondering why things didn't work out for her. She figured it was because she hadn't fully revealed herself. After all, she was dressed like a commoner. But now their next meeting will be at the ball, and he will see her in all her glory. She decided to involve Beatrice as well. And she wrote to Beatrice in response to her letter. Count Bersink turned out to be as devilish as rumors describe him. I ask you to save your sister from him as soon as possible. Beatrice read the letter and thought that her sister would certainly be at the ball, and she will do it all with tears. In the meantime, she needs to prepare. At this time, Friedrich was preparing for the tailor's visit. He told Chloe that he wanted a dress made for her. Chloe was surprised. The girl remembered how her stepmother did not let her pack her things before she left. She wanted to take only one dress, her mother's, and she said that it was her property. Chloe argued that the dress was hers, but the stepmother insisted that if it weren't for her, she wouldn't have gotten married. And in general, this dress will not be useful to her, since she will be stuck in this wilderness with a real devil for the rest of her days. The stepmother looked at her mother's dress and was indignant that Chloe was hiding it. She was already wondering where she would wear it. Chloe was angry, but she couldn't say anything. "Who else is stealing here? Don't touch him with your dirty hands," remained only in her head. As a result, she went to the wedding in Bersink in what she was wearing. And then happy days allowed her to forget about it. And she didn't go to social events, so she didn't buy formal clothes. Mr. Friedrich said that a tailor had arrived especially for her. The best one could ever be found in Bersink. She should take advantage of the moment and order several dresses. Chloe thanked her husband, and the tailor began to take her measurements. She felt special. Beatrice was usually pampered with outfits. Her stepsister was always beautiful and fashionable, and she herself remained as if her shadow, someone secondary. Now everything was for her. Chloe was surrounded by maids who advised her on fabrics. When she told them she wanted something less flashy, they were very surprised. The maids advised her that bright fabrics would be more suitable for her dark hair. When she agreed, they were more happy than she was. The fabrics were very pleasant to the touch. It was silk. She was offered the color golden champagne. He really suited her very well. She noticed that her face brightened with him. The tailor said that this fabric is what you need. Now they need to decide on a design to suit her height, and she will shine with her husband. Chloe had never felt such pleasure before. She thanked the tailor for his work. She couldn't wait to see the finished dress. Now she wanted to look at Mr. Friedrich. Chloe went into the next room. When she saw him, she froze. Friedrich looked very handsome in his new suit. She couldn't believe he looked so handsome. Chloe covered her face with her hands, and her husband asked her what happened. He thought she didn't like his suit. His wife told him that he had understood everything wrong, and that it suited him very well. The maids watched this cute couple and discussed that it was always like this with them. Chloe asked her husband that he decided to completely change his wardrobe. He replied that his previous clothes were sewn a long time ago, but he did not go out into society for a long time and trained a lot. And after that, his body changed a little. He unbuttoned his shirt. Chloe covered her eyes with her hands. In this lighting, his abs were even more dazzling. The gentleman continued trying on jackets. She sat down on a chair. He kept asking Chloe which color she liked best. She realized that he was inviting her to choose his outfit for the ball. Friedrich leaned over her and said that since she was standing next to him, the choice should be hers. It's true, she's not walking alone after all. This time it's different. She is no longer an addition to Beatrice, and not Emil's protective talisman. Now she has a partner who trusts her. Mr. Friedrich and Chloe arrived at the jewelry store. The merchant they knew was very happy to see them. She asked if they had come for accessories for the evening ball. She advised Chloe to have a stone of an unusual color. This mineral is called tourmaline. Chloe asked why this stone was for her, and the old woman asked if he reminded her of anything. And she nodded her head at Mr. Friedrich. It was his eyes, the color of this stone. She winked at the master and added that this stone would look great as a decoration in her hair. She will prepare it for her. Then the merchant asked Chloe if she knew who wore such a heart-shaped decoration. Chloe recognized him immediately, and the fact that it belonged to Daphne. Chloe asked where she got it from. The old lady replied that she believed that the woman was targeting Mr. Friedrich. When the girl got scared, she said that it was not for the purpose of killing, and with the purpose of seducing. Chloe realized that Daphne was angry with her and wanted to fight off Friedrich. Then she simply had no time to worry about Beatrice and Emil. Although it was clear that anger was oozing out of her. Probably Mr. Friedrich kept the incident with her a secret so as not to disturb his wife. The old lady decided to warn Chloe. After all, she may not let her into the city in order to avoid more serious situations. But outside the city in Soviet society, she has no influence on her. Then the merchant told Chloe that there were 2 such marriages. A young woman bought one in the past. She recently reappeared in Bersink, and as far as she can tell, she has her eye on Mr. Friedrich. Chloe wondered, "What are you up to, Daphne?" The merchant asked Chloe to be careful at the ball. In the evening, in the carriage on the way home, Friedrich asked Chloe how he should behave with other women at the ball, so that they would not be afraid of him, and he would not be afraid of them. It was a simple question, but Chloe imagined Daphne snatching Friedrich away from her, and she pressed herself against him as tightly as she could. Chloe replied that he could communicate with her normally. Friedrich said that she was special. She accepted him for who he was. The husband told her that he was happy that she was his wife, and Chloe thought that no matter what happened there, everything would be fine with them.